There is something about you that people notice before you even say a word, something they cannot explain but cannot ignore either. It is the way you think differently, the way you carry yourself with quiet confidence, and the way you stay focused while others lose control of their direction. You are not trying to impress anyone, yet people still find themselves watching you, talking about you, and even thinking about you more than they should. Some admire you in silence, some feel challenged by your presence, and some become so curious about you that they cannot seem to look away. But here is the deeper truth. This is not just attention, and it is not just admiration. It is a form of obsession that comes from people trying to understand something they cannot easily copy. Your intelligence makes them question themselves. Your discipline makes them uncomfortable with their own habits. And your calm focus makes them realize how distracted they really are. And while they are busy trying to figure you out, they do not realize that your life was never meant to be understood by everyone. It was meant to move with purpose, clarity, and quiet strength that speaks louder than words ever could. Lesson 1. Your presence forces people to face themselves. The truth is that people do not become obsessed with what feels ordinary or easy to understand. They become obsessed with what quietly challenges them and forces them to look at themselves in ways they usually avoid, and that is exactly what your presence does without you even trying. Your intelligence makes them aware of how often they think on a shallow level or avoid making better decisions. Your discipline highlights how frequently they delay, quit, or make excuses. And your self-control reminds them of how easily they lose focus and react emotionally to situations they should handle with maturity. This creates an internal discomfort in them because you become a living example of what they could be but are not choosing to become. And instead of accepting that truth and working on themselves, many people take the easier route by observing you, overthinking your actions, and even criticizing you, just to protect their own ego. In Islam, life is a test for every individual, and sometimes that test comes through encountering someone who is living with clarity, purpose, and strong values, because it forces a decision either to grow or to stay the same. And most people struggle with that moment of honesty, so they turn their attention toward you instead of toward their own improvement, which is why they keep watching you, thinking about you, and becoming quietly obsessed, not because you are trying to stand out, but because your existence reflects a truth they are not yet ready to face within themselves. Lesson 2. People get obsessed when they cannot control you. One of the deepest reasons people become fixated on you is because they slowly realize that they cannot control you, influence your direction, or predict your decisions. And that lack of control creates a powerful tension in their mind that keeps pulling their attention back to you again and again. Most people are used to dealing with others who seek approval, who adjust themselves to fit in, or who can be influenced through opinions, pressure, or emotional reactions. But you move differently because your decisions are not based on pleasing people. They are based on discipline, self-respect, and a higher sense of purpose. This independence confuses them because they cannot figure out what motivates you in the same way they understand others. And when people cannot understand or control something, they become more focused on it rather than less. They start watching your behavior more closely, trying to decode your mindset, questioning why you do not react the way they expect, and wondering why their opinions do not affect you. And this constant mental effort slowly turns into obsession. Instead of accepting that you are simply grounded and self-directed, they keep searching for an explanation that makes sense to them. But the truth is simple. You are not driven by external validation, and that is what sets you apart. In Islam, true strength comes from being firm in your values and not being dependent on people's approval. And when someone lives like that, it creates a quiet confidence that cannot be manipulated. And that is exactly what makes others feel both drawn to you and unsettled by you at the same time, because they are not used to encountering someone who cannot be easily influenced or controlled. Lesson 3. Your beauty is deep, not surface level. What truly sets you apart is not just how you look on the outside, but the depth behind your presence, because your beauty is not limited to physical features. It is built through your mindset, your discipline, your emotional control, and the way you carry yourself in different situations. And that combination creates something that people feel even more than they see. Many people can appear attractive at first glance, but that kind of beauty fades quickly when there is no substance behind it, while your presence leaves a lasting impact because it is supported by character, focus, and purpose. The way you remain calm when others panic, the way you stay silent instead of reacting emotionally, and the way you walk away from things that do not align with your values, all add layers to your presence that make people curious about you on a deeper level. This is why people do not just notice you in the moment. They remember you afterward. They replay conversations in their minds, and they try to understand what makes you different, because there is a consistency in how you think and behave that is rare to find. In Islam, true beauty is connected to what is inside a person, including their intentions, their character, and their level of self-control. And when those qualities are strong, they reflect outward in a way that cannot be faked or copied. People may try to imitate your style, your words, or your behavior, but they cannot easily replicate the inner discipline and clarity that gives your presence its strength. And that is why their attention does not fade over time, because they are not just reacting to how you look, they are reacting to a deeper energy that comes from alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you live. And that kind of beauty, naturally, draws people in, while also making them question themselves at the same time. Lesson 4. Your drive exposes their lack of action. Your drive does more than move your life forward. It quietly exposes the gap between intention and action in the lives of others. Because while many people talk about goals, dreams, and plans, very few actually follow through with consistency, discipline, and patience. And when they see you taking steady action without constantly announcing it, it forces them to confront their own pattern of delay and excuses, which creates a discomfort they often try to avoid by focusing on you instead of themselves. This is why your progress feels heavy to them, even when you are moving in silence, because every step you take becomes a reminder of what they are not doing, and instead of matching your effort, they watch, analyze, and sometimes even downplay your work to protect their own ego. A powerful example of this can be seen in the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who faced years of rejection, pressure, and hardship in Mecca. Yet he remained consistent in his mission without becoming distracted by the opinions, mockery, or resistance of the people around him. And while many around him refused to change or take responsibility for their actions, his unwavering discipline and commitment to truth eventually exposed their weakness and lack of direction. Even when the early Muslims were few and faced intense struggles, the Prophet, peace be upon him, continued moving forward with patience and action rather than empty words, showing that real strength is not in what you say, but in what you consistently do over time. In the same way, your drive is not just about achieving goals, it is about maintaining focus when it would be easier to quit, and that level of consistency makes others uncomfortable because it removes their ability to justify their own inaction, and instead of rising to your level, many choose to stay where they are, while keeping their attention fixed on you, because watching you is easier than becoming like you. But the truth remains that your progress is not loud because you want attention. It is loud because discipline always stands out in a world full of hesitation. Lesson 5. Not everyone who watches you supports you. It is very important for you to understand, at a deep and practical level, that attention does not always mean support. And just because people are watching you, talking about you, or showing interest in your life, does not mean they want to see you succeed, because human nature is complex and often driven by emotions people do not openly admit. And this is where many people make a serious mistake by assuming that visibility equals respect or admiration, when in reality, a large portion of the attention you receive may come from comparison, insecurity, curiosity, or even hidden resentment. And if you do not develop the awareness to recognize this difference, You can easily become distracted, misled, or even weakened by the very attention you think is positive. When someone sees your intelligence, your discipline, your growth, and your ability to stay focused, it creates two possible reactions inside them. One is inspiration, where they feel motivated to improve themselves, and the other is discomfort, where they feel exposed and inadequate. And when a person is not ready to face their own weaknesses, that discomfort slowly turns into silent envy. And envy does not always appear in obvious or aggressive ways. It often hides behind normal behavior, like asking too many questions, watching you closely without engaging positively, bringing up your name in conversations repeatedly, or pretending to support you while internally hoping you lose your momentum. And the reason this happens is because your progress becomes a constant reminder of what they are not doing with their own life. This is why some people will praise you in public but doubt you in private. They will smile in front of you but question you behind your back. They will act curious about your journey but secretly compare every step you take with their own lack of progress. And over time, this creates a kind of emotional tension within them that keeps them mentally attached to you because they cannot ignore what you represent. Yet they are not willing to transform themselves either. So they remain in this middle state of watching, thinking, and reacting without ever moving forward. You may notice that certain people always seem to know what you are doing. They keep track of your growth. They notice small changes in your behavior, and they stay updated about your life, even when you are not directly connected to them. And this is not always because they admire you. It is often because they are trying to measure themselves against you, trying to understand how you are progressing, and sometimes even waiting for a moment where you make a mistake so they can feel a sense of relief about their own situation. Envy is considered a real and dangerous emotion because it does not just affect the person who feels it, it can also impact the one it is directed toward if there is no awareness or protection. And this is why you are taught to remain humble, to avoid showing everything openly, and to keep certain aspects of your life private, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because not every achievement needs to be displayed, not every plan needs to be shared, and not every person deserves access to your personal growth. And the more you understand this, the more you will realize that protecting your focus is just as important as building it. There is a well-known example from the story of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, whose own brothers became envious of him because of the favor and attention he received, and that envy led them to act against him in a way that changed the course of his life, not because he did anything wrong, but because they could not handle what he represented. And this shows that envy can come even from those who are close to you, which makes it even more important to stay aware and grounded. The lesson here is not to become paranoid or to assume the worst about everyone, but to develop clarity and emotional intelligence so you can recognize the difference between genuine support and silent comparison. Because when you are able to make that distinction, you stop seeking validation from people who are not truly aligned with you, and you stop giving energy to those who are only watching without contributing anything positive to your journey. You begin to move with more intention. You become more selective about who you allow into your space, and you understand that real support is shown through consistency, sincerity, and positive action, not just words or attention. This also helps you stay grounded, because instead of getting caught up in how many people are watching you, you focus on why you are doing what you are doing, and you remind yourself that your purpose is not to impress people, but to grow, to stay disciplined, and to live with integrity. At the same time, you must also guard your own heart from falling into the same trap, because just as others may feel envy toward you, you are also capable of feeling it toward others if you are not careful. And this is why self-awareness is essential, because the goal is not just to protect yourself from negative energy, but also to purify your own intentions so that your actions remain sincere and focused. When you reach this level of understanding, you no longer feel the need to respond to every opinion, to prove yourself to every observer, or to react to every hidden emotion directed toward you, because you realize that most of what people feel has nothing to do with you personally and everything to do with their own internal struggles. So instead of being distracted by who is watching, who is talking, or who is silently competing, you stay focused on your path, you protect your energy, and you continue moving forward with discipline and clarity, knowing that not all attention is equal and not all observers are supporters. And once you fully accept this, you gain a level of control over your mindset that allows you to grow without being pulled in different directions by the thoughts, emotions, or expectations of others. And that is what truly separates someone who is aware from someone who is easily influenced. Because while others are busy watching and reacting, you remain steady, intentional, and committed to becoming better without needing approval from anyone around you. Lesson 6. Your silence makes you more powerful. There is a kind of power that most people completely underestimate because it does not look loud, emotional, or attention-seeking, and that is the power of silence. The kind of silence where you are fully in control of yourself, your emotions, your reactions, and your direction in life. This is the same silence that makes people think about you more, not less, because they cannot easily read you, predict you, or control how you respond. In a world where most people feel the need to explain everything, defend themselves constantly, and respond to every opinion or criticism, your ability to stay quiet when something does not deserve your energy immediately sets you apart in a noticeable way. Most people are reactive by nature. They speak when they are triggered. They argue when they feel challenged. They over-explain when they feel misunderstood. And they rush to clear every wrong assumption others have about them. But the problem with this is that constant reaction slowly takes away their control because it means their emotions are being controlled by outside situations and people. On the other hand, when you choose silence, you are not acting out of weakness, but out of awareness and discipline. You understand that not every comment deserves a response. Not every situation needs your explanation, and not every person deserves access to your thoughts. This creates a very different energy around you, because people are used to predictable reactions, but you do not follow that pattern. When people cannot get a reaction from you, something interesting happens in their mind. They start thinking more than they should. They begin to question your silence, analyze your behavior, and create their own assumptions about what you might be thinking. Instead of getting clarity from you, they enter a state of confusion, and that confusion keeps their attention on you for longer than a normal conversation ever would. In many cases, your silence makes people more curious than your words ever could, because human beings are naturally drawn to what they cannot fully understand or control. At the same time, silence protects your energy in a way that most people only realize after they experience exhaustion from constant arguments, explanations, and unnecessary conversations. Every time you respond to something meaningless, you give away a piece of your focus, and over time, that focus becomes scattered. But when you choose silence, you preserve your energy for what actually matters, such as your goals, your growth, and your long-term direction in life. This is why people who talk less often end up doing more, because they are not wasting their energy trying to convince everyone of everything. Instead, they are using that energy to build something real. Silence also shows emotional strength. Anyone can react, anyone can argue, and anyone can try to defend themselves in the moment, but not everyone has the self-control to stay calm when they are misunderstood or judged unfairly. It takes real inner strength to hear something about yourself and still choose not to respond immediately, not because you cannot respond, but because you understand that reacting to everything lowers your power instead of increasing it. This is where your silence becomes a sign of maturity, because it shows that you are not easily controlled by emotions or external pressure. In Islam, there is strong wisdom in controlling speech and avoiding unnecessary words, because what you say can either benefit you or harm you, and sometimes silence is safer and more powerful than speaking. When you apply this mindset in your life, you start to notice a change in how people treat you. They become more careful around your presence, more curious about your reactions, and more focused on your behavior because they cannot easily predict how you will respond. This creates a quiet form of respect, even from people who do not fully understand you. Another important part of silence is that it makes your actions more powerful than your words. When you do not constantly explain yourself, people are forced to observe what you actually do instead of what you say. Over time, your consistency, discipline, and results become your real identity. People may forget your words, but they remember your behavior and your progress. This is why silent people often leave a stronger impact, because their life speaks without needing constant explanation or validation. Silence also helps you filter people naturally. Those who only enjoy noise, gossip, or constant attention often drift away, while those who value depth, consistency, and purpose tend to stay. This creates a more stable environment around you, where you are not surrounded by unnecessary drama or emotional pressure, but instead by people and situations that align more with your focus. So when people start becoming obsessed with you, trying to figure you out, analyzing your behavior, and overthinking your silence, it is not because you are trying to confuse them, but because your discipline and self-control are unfamiliar to them. They are not used to someone who does not react instantly, who does not explain everything, and who does not chase validation. But the truth is simple. You are not silent to create attention. You are silent to protect your focus, your peace, and your direction in life. And that is why your silence does not make you invisible, it makes you powerful, in a way that words alone never could. Lesson 7. This attention is a test of your character. At a certain stage in your life, when your intelligence becomes noticeable, your discipline becomes consistent, your appearance becomes recognized, and your drive becomes undeniable. Something shifts in how people respond to you. You start receiving more attention, more observation, more opinions, and even more silent reactions from people who are watching your growth closely. And at that point, it is very easy to misunderstand what this attention actually means. Many people assume that being noticed, talked about, or even admired is a sign that they are on the right path, and that everything they are experiencing is purely positive. But the deeper reality is that attention itself is not a reward, it is a test. It tests your mindset, your intentions, your emotional stability, and your ability to stay grounded when people begin to place you under pressure without directly saying anything. The real question is not who is watching you, but how you behave when you know you are being watched, because that is where your true character begins to show without filters. When you start receiving attention from others, whether it is admiration, curiosity, or even silent envy, your life becomes more exposed to different types of energy. And each type of energy affects people differently, depending on their level of awareness. Some people handle attention by becoming more humble and more focused, understanding that whatever they are receiving is temporary and should not distract them from their purpose. Others, however, slowly become affected by it without realizing, and they start adjusting their personality, their decisions, and even their values based on how people perceive them. This is where the test begins, because attention has the power to either strengthen your discipline or slowly weaken your identity if you are not careful. It is very subtle. It does not happen overnight, and that is what makes it dangerous, because you may feel like nothing is wrong while your mindset is slowly shifting away from your original direction. Every form of increase in status, recognition, or influence is also a responsibility, because it is not just about what you gain, it is about how you handle what you gain. The more you are seen by others, the more your intentions are indirectly tested, because it becomes easier to fall into pride, comparison, or the desire for approval. This is why attention is never meant to be treated as a validation of superiority, but as a reminder of responsibility. The higher you rise in visibility, the more careful you must become with your intentions, your behavior, and your connection with your purpose. Because the same attention that builds you can also distract you if you begin to depend on it emotionally. One of the biggest hidden tests of attention is ego. When people start noticing you more, it becomes tempting to think that your value is increasing because of how others react to you. Compliments can make you feel elevated. Admiration can make you feel important. And constant observation can make you feel like you are different from others in a way that gives you superiority. But this is exactly where many people lose themselves, because they begin to shift their identity from being grounded in purpose to being grounded in perception. Instead of asking, "Am I growing in the right direction?" they start asking, "How do people see me?" And that shift, even if small, slowly changes the foundation of their mindset. Real strength is not in being noticed, but in staying unchanged internally, even when you are noticed more externally. Another part of this test is distraction. When people become aware that others are watching them, they sometimes begin to perform instead of simply living. They start thinking about how they look in every situation, how their actions might be interpreted, and how to maintain a certain image in front of others. This creates pressure, and that pressure slowly pulls them away from authenticity. Instead of focusing on their growth, they start focusing on their image. Instead of improving themselves for the sake of their future, they start managing how they appear in the present. And over time, this can lead to exhaustion, confusion, and loss of direction, because living for perception is mentally draining. True progress happens when you remain focused on your path, not on how your path looks to others. There is also a spiritual dimension to this test that is often ignored. When people begin to notice your growth, your discipline, and your consistency, it can create different reactions around you. Some people feel inspired, but others may feel challenged or uncomfortable, not because you are doing something wrong, but because your presence reflects a level of effort or focus that they are not applying in their own lives. This is where the test becomes internal as well as external. You are not just being tested by how you respond to others, but also by how you respond internally to their reactions. Will you become affected by their admiration or criticism, or will you stay consistent regardless of how they see you? This is where maturity is built, not in isolation, but in the presence of attention. A powerful example from the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, shows how attention and recognition do not always come in the form of comfort or praise. During the early years of his mission, he was not widely accepted, but he was constantly observed, questioned, and opposed by people in his society. Even when his message was clear and his character was known for honesty and trustworthiness, people still reacted to him in different ways, based on their own beliefs and emotions. Despite all of this attention, whether positive or negative, he remained consistent in his character, patient in his response, and focused on his mission without allowing external reactions to change his internal direction. This shows that the real test is not whether people notice you, but whether you remain stable when they do. When you understand this deeply, your entire relationship with attention begins to change. You stop chasing it, you stop fearing it, and you stop being emotionally dependent on it. Instead, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a mirror that reflects your level of discipline, humility, and awareness. If you handle it correctly, it can strengthen you by forcing you to stay grounded. If you handle it incorrectly, it can slowly pull you away from your original purpose by feeding your ego or distracting your focus. That is why attention is not a gift to be celebrated blindly, but a responsibility to be managed carefully. The strongest people are not those who avoid attention completely, and not those who are overwhelmed by it, but those who remain unchanged by it. They do not become more arrogant when people praise them, and they do not become discouraged when people misunderstand them. They stay focused on what they are building, they stay aware of their intentions, and they stay committed to their path regardless of external reactions. This is the level where true character is revealed, not when life is quiet and unnoticed, but when life becomes visible and observed. So when you find yourself in a position where people are watching you more closely, talking about you more often, or reacting to your presence in different ways, do not assume it is a sign that you have reached an endpoint or achieved something final. Instead, understand that it is a stage of testing where your discipline, your humility, and your self-control are being shaped under pressure. The goal is not to become consumed by attention, but to rise above it internally while continuing your journey externally. Because in the end, what defines you is not how many people notice you, but how consistent you remain when they do. Conclusion. Everything comes down to understanding one simple but powerful truth. Your life was never meant to be measured by how many people watch you, talk about you, or become emotionally attached to your presence. All of that attention, whether it comes in the form of admiration, curiosity, or silent obsession, is temporary and unstable. It rises and falls depending on people's emotions, their insecurities, and their own internal struggles. What truly matters is not how strongly others react to you, but how firmly you stay connected to your purpose when all of that noise is happening around you. Your intelligence, your beauty, and your drive are not just traits that make you noticeable. They are qualities that place responsibility on you to stay grounded, disciplined, and aware of your intentions at every stage of your life. If people are watching you, then your actions naturally become more visible, and that visibility is not a reason to change who you are, but a reason to become even more consistent in who you are becoming. The real strength is not in being seen, but in remaining unchanged internally while being seen by many. You will always have people who misunderstand you, people who silently compete with you, people who admire you from a distance, and people who become obsessed with what they cannot fully explain. But none of these reactions should become the center of your focus. They are reflections of their own inner world, not instructions for your direction. Your responsibility is to stay focused on your growth, protect your mindset from distraction, and continue building your life with patience and discipline, even when you are being observed more than ever. The highest level of maturity is reached when attention no longer controls your emotions, when opinions no longer shape your identity, and when external reactions no longer pull you away from your path. At that stage, you understand that everything you experience is either a test or a lesson, and your success lies in how calmly and consistently you respond to both. So keep moving forward without changing your direction for approval, without slowing down for validation, and without getting lost in the attention around you. Because, in the end, your real victory is not that people are watching you, it is that you remain focused, disciplined, and aligned with your purpose, even while they are.